I think I found the case of the world's worst investor ever, and they still became a millionaire. So let's go ahead and break it down. So on the website called Wealth of Common Sense, they have an article where they break down what would happen if you invested money in the worst possible times, and the results were quite astounding. So I wanted to break that down for you and tell you the lessons that you can learn from this particular case. Now, let's start off with the ground rules. So in this case, this person starts off at age 22 in 1970. They want to retire at 65. That would be in 2013. And the way that they did this was they started to invest and save $2,000 per year. However, in each decade, they increased it by 2,000. So the 1970s, 2000, 1980s, 4,000, 1990s, 2000, so on and so forth. So they kept increasing every single decade. They start off again in the year 1970. And here's the other thing. In this particular case, the guy did not want to invest until he knew the stock market was doing well. So keep that in mind. So let's start off in the year 1970. The market is going fine. He says, all right, I'm ready in 1972. I have $6,000, 1970, 2000, 71, 72, so $6,000. At the end of 1972, they say, great, stock market's going up. I'm going to go ahead and invest because this is the right time for me to jump in. Here's what happens. So in the year 1972 is when they start, and then you've got, I'll just put dollar signs here, how much was put in. You got 6,000. And then let's do market results. All right, now if you're not a historian, you don't remember what happened 1973 to 1974, the stock market fell by this much, 50%. So you start investing, the minute you start investing, you've saved up for 3 years. You set over 3 years, you start investing, you lose 50%. So again, he's like, all right, that was terrible. I'm going to continue to save, and when I am ready, I will get back into the stock market. And they did in the year 1987, August of 1987. So at this point, August 1987, and you saved during that entire period. This time you put in $46,000. And then what happens? Market falls 30%. So you waited that entire time. You kept saving, just held it on the side while you're waiting for the stock market to improve. We talked about this all the time. There are people say, well, I just want to wait until X happens, right? Until this bad thing happens and it's over, I want to go ahead and hop back in. This time they waited from 1974 to 1987 and then said, look, I've got all this money. I've got $46,000. I'm going to go ahead, put it in the stock market. Boom, it drops another 30%. Now, during this entire time, this person has not sold, okay? So I want to make sure that that is clear. And in this example, we are investing in something like the S&P 500 index fund. And we've talked about index funds before. If you don't know, stay tuned. I'm going to explain it for you. All right, so now you say, all right, that was awful. Again, I've lost 30%, but things got a little bit better. It went from 50 to 30. Well, what happens this time? They wait until the year 1999, which you already know is not the best year for anybody, really, to invest. And you put in $68,000 at this point, and what happened? You know that the market fell 50%, and it fell 50% all the way down until 2002. Not great. Not great. Again, so 3 consecutive times you invested, and you lost 50%, 30%, and another 50%. So now you're really upset. You say, all right, I'm going to stop. I'm going to continue just putting money in my savings account because clearly I'm not the best investor. I'm going to wait and jump back in when I think things are better. Things get better, but you invest in the year 2007, right as the financial crisis hits. This time, you are putting in $64,000. And what happens during that time? The market falls another 50%. Not great. Not great, John, or whatever this person's name is in this case. So you lost 50% every time except for one. The one time you didn't lose 50%, you lost 30. Now, after all of this, if I'm doing my math right, I believe this was, let's add all of this up, $184,000 invested during this entire time. And your in total at the end of 2013 would have been $1.1 million. $1.1 million. How in the world could you have invested in all the worst times basically in history and lose that many times and still end up with $1 million? And how can you double that? Because there is a way to have doubled this by investing the exact same amount. Well, here's the thing. Number one, the lesson here is to continue investing, to hold on to your investments, because yes, these are 4 of some of the worst times to invest in modern history, but the time in between, the market still gained. This is something I've been saying and been preaching on this channel and everywhere else for a while now. You remember the bad days. You remember the terrible years. Everybody remembers 2007. We all remember the pandemic and what the market did during that time. What happened between those periods? Not everybody talks about those. So between 1999 and 2000, between 1987 and 1999, that money was growing and compounding the entire time. That is important, and that's one of the reasons why the money still grew, even though those were some of the worst times to invest and you lost money the minute that you put your money into it. Also, you could have doubled and had really more than doubled, and had $2.3 million if you had dollar cost averaged. What is dollar cost averaging? For those that don't know or don't remember, because it's been a while since we've talked about it, dollar cost averaging is putting in the exact same amount on a regular period. So $2,000 per year, instead of just saving it and waiting until you felt it was the right time. You could have doubled the money in that case. Or you could have taken $2,000, split it out between each month and just invested every single month for 1970 to 2013, and you still would have doubled your money, or very close to have doubled your money during that period. Not what this person did in this case. However, this does show you that even though you could be wrong in choosing the right time to invest, it does make sense to continue to hold. And whatever you do, you don't want to panic. And y'all know I've been consistent in doing this. We've got video receipts here on YouTube and on Facebook and everywhere else. Even when the market falls, you do not want to panic. You want to invest for the long term, and not doing so can be a major mistake. What would have happened had this person invested in 1972 and 1987, the market falls 50%, and you took your money out? That was it. You lost 50% and you did not recover. That was the end of it. And people in 2020 did this exact same thing when the market fell 25 or 30%, or whatever happened back then. Market dropped within 30 to 90 days, people took their money out, and the market was up before the end of the year. Hey, you shouldn't have panicked, right? And we talked about that. You really weren't able to recover because 2021, the market was up, 2022, the market was shaky, but you keep skipping, right? You keep missing. We talk about the data that Goldman Sachs and JP Morgan put out every single year about how missing just 10 days in the stock market can cut your returns in half. Just by missing 10 of the best days in the market every year. You don't want to do that because you're not going to be able to guess what days are great, what days aren't. We're running into what could be a government shutdown here in 2023. I've said before, I'm not going to just pull my money out of the stock market because this can mess me up for the long term. I don't know how long it's going to last. And we also know the stock market does rise on average during government shutdowns by 0.4%. So, what's your lesson here? Continue to invest, stay calm, do not panic, and also there are a few other things that you do want to make sure you avoid. I've got the top 5 mistakes that new investors should never do, and that video is right here.